So just a couple weeks ago, I talked about how to access Nano Banana inside of ComfyUI in order to get the direct API pricing instead of paying through online platforms that also charge an overhead fee, so to speak. And then just a few days later, Seedream comes onto the scene and absolutely stomps the competition. And on top of that, we also have access to it once again in ComfyUI through the same API model pricing. So if you didn't see my video on Nano Banana, when it comes to these closed source models, a lot of the time we can still access them inside of ComfyUI through these API nodes. These are custom nodes supported by the ComfyUI team. And so yes, these are paid. You do need to pay in order to use the models. We can still leverage these nodes and their outputs to pass the images along through other workflows that you might be using. So this basically allows us to make complex automated workflows while still being able to leverage the best of the best models even though they are closed source. So in order to access this model inside of ComfyUI, the first thing that you're going to have to do is go to your manager. Then you're going to click on Update All. Once that's done, you're going to want to restart your ComfyUI and then refresh your browser. Once that's done, you're going to need to make sure your ComfyUI account has a balance. If you haven't logged into ComfyUI before, when you come up here, there should be a login or something like that. Go ahead and create an account and then log in. And then you should see something like this at the bottom. Either your credit balance is 0 or add funds here. You're basically just going to want to add some funds into your account so that you can use the models inside of ComfyUI. And so when I originally made my Nano Banana video, I mentioned that it was 1 cent per image at the time. It did eventually go up to, I believe, 4 cents per image. I haven't tried it lately. I would imagine that's where it kind of stayed. And so with that in mind, ByteDance currently is at about 3 cents per image as denoted here, but who knows, that may go up, that may go down. And so once you've done all those steps to access the ComfyUI supported workflow, you can go to the top left where the ComfyUI icon is, then go ahead and click on Browse Templates. Then in All Templates, you can just go ahead and search for Seedream, and then you will see the ByteDance Seedream 4.0 ComfyUI workflow. If you click on that, you're going to see something like this. So this has a few different things in here, but don't worry, we're going to go through it step by step. So starting from scratch, what I would do is come and grab this node, for example, from the ComfyUI supported workflow. Or another way to access it is by just double tapping on the canvas, searching for ByteDance, and then you should see Seedream 4. Go ahead and click on that. And then all you need to do is again, double click on the canvas and type load image. Connect that to your image input on the ByteDance node. Then again, double click, search for save image, and we can go ahead and save that. So now you have the bare minimum to use the ByteDance Seedream 4.0 node in ComfyUI. All right, now that we are set up with the basics, I'm going to go ahead and run a test just to confirm the actual cost. I have $4.69 in my account right now. I've loaded the same image and prompt from the Nano Banana video. We're gonna go ahead and run this. What I do like a lot about this node inside of ComfyUI is the fact that we have a lot more control here. For example, it looks like we can do batch images, which fits really nicely with a lot of workflows, custom width and height, size presets, which is really great as well. It really takes the guesswork out of what resolutions work well with the model. Oh, and interesting, we can see a flag down here that says AI generated. I will say that in today's day and age, this is not particularly effective, but I can understand and certainly respect it. And so now looking at the cost, it looks like that was in fact around 3 cents. So one thing we might have noticed is that this definitely looks great, but I think the resolution's a little bit weird. Let's get a little bit hands-on here. I also noticed we're saving the file as ComfyUI, which is not going to work. So let's go ahead and type a string. And you know what? While we're at it, let's just make this a prompt. So we'll go ahead, title this prompt, and then we'll get rid of it here, plug this into here. Then we can also type string again to get a file name, which we are going to call Seedream. And then the big thing I want to do is get image size and then plug this into here and then change the resolution to custom. Another thing to take note of with this model is the insane resolutions it can generate at. You can see that none of these are light work in any capacity. We definitely aren't seeing Nano Banana being open sourced from Google, and historically I don't recall ByteDance being the most open with these intense models like this. But you know what? The fact that they've given us so much control inside of ComfyUI at a pretty competitive cost works well for me. Okay, so now we've essentially rewired this a little bit. So we're taking the resolution directly from the input image and feeding that to Seedream. So let's see how this turns out. I will say that this API node seems to take quite a decent bit of time. Okay, and a pretty solid result here. I definitely am a fan of this. I think this looks pretty good. All right, so let's go ahead and just move these out of the way, make them red, just because I like to have my adjustable nodes in red. And you know what? This really wouldn't be a fair test if we didn't have a comparison against Nano Banana. So again, I'm just gonna wire this up, make sure that all my inputs are matching so that the two are getting the same information. Then I'm also going to add an image compare node and put Nano Banana on the bottom, on the top. And then we're also going to add an image compare for each of these, just so we can get a good look at any specific details, for example. All right, so with that in mind, let's go ahead and run this and get a fair comparison. All right, so Nano Banana has already come through. We're just waiting on Seedream. Okay, so it seems that both of them have come through in a pretty reasonable time. So let's take a look at Nano Banana first. Okay, pretty nice, very good. I will say it looks like we kept a decent amount of the detail. You can see the resolution output was 832 by 1248, so a little bit smaller. I mean, nothing an upscaler can't fix, but that lower resolution is definitely causing some quality loss. But overall, not bad, definitely usable and no watermark. Taking a look at Seedream, we can see first and foremost the same resolution, which is great. And then when we come across, we can see a pretty direct match between the original image and the output image. Again though, definitely losing some clarity on the generation. I think an upscaler again could fix that. Overall, I like it. I will say I am getting a little bit of the piss filter vibes from GPT 4.0, but overall I like it. And then let's take a quick look at the comparison. So we have Seedream right here, and then as we come across, we can see Nano Banana. So overall, I mean, pretty good. I think we're definitely going to need to do some more vigorous testing. I know in the previous Nano Banana video, we definitely saw some undesirable results. All right, so let's do some more vigorous testing here. So in the last video with Nano Banana, we ended up running into a little bit of an issue with one of the products that we were testing. And so I want to try that same exact method again and see how our results differ between Seedream and Nano Banana. So in the Nano Banana video, we talked about how to properly send batch images to these API nodes. And so typically we would use the image stitch, but what that ends up doing is actually messing with how the model perceives the files that you sent. So the correct way to do it is with the batch images node. And so when we were testing this with Nano Banana, this exact same combination and now the same prompt, we were running into some weird, almost compositing like artifacts with Nano Banana. So I'm very curious to see how this new resolution option with Seedream helps fix that problem, and if maybe Seedream has the same problem. So let's go ahead and run this. And so yep, we can see how the images are sent to the models. You can see this one actually gets cropped a little bit, and that must be why we're not seeing the rounded pill shape like in our Nano Banana video. Yep, so this is exactly what I'm talking about. Definitely looks pretty composited. And as we can see, since the product had the top and bottom cut off in the batch images, it is perceived as not having these kind of rounded edges like it does in real life. And one thing we forgot to do is actually add the remove background node. And the reason that we're doing this is because the image of the product that we're submitting is a silo image. And since the product is also white, we just want to make sure that we're giving the model the most information we can about what it's looking at. So we'll also preview image that. And then coming back to Seedream, this is definitely interesting. That is quite a large bottle. This text is quite incoherent, but honestly, I can't really blame the model, especially when we look at the batch image. I mean, I guess it is legible, but I mean, text has always been a huge problem for models, especially these editing type models. So overall, not bad, but I'm curious, what if we swap the inputs here? So we'll put the input of our portrait second and then the product first, see if that makes a difference. Okay, so now we have the full product being sent to the model along with just kind of a transparent / gray background. Let's see how this turns out. Again, Nano Banana really struggling here. You know, it could be the product image, but at the same time, this is definitely just too poor of a result for my taste. And now we are talking. Again, text still messed up, but perfect, kind of exactly what I was looking for. So I think the key takeaway we can really take from this little test here is that there's obviously an importance in how you're sending images to the model. You know, for example, coming back to our product images, after we made that change, we were able to get the full product in its full shape sent to the model, as well as our portrait. But as we can see, the resolution of the first image seems to determine the resolution of every other image you're inputting in the batch, so just keep that in mind. And I think that's why we're a bit more cropped in here. So overall, Seedream 4.0 definitely taking the win here. And you might be saying, well, this is a pretty easy test. And that is true. You know, we started with a wink and then just a simple product integration. But I really wanted to start simple for this reason, to show off the big issue that I kind of saw with Nano Banana, and then to see if Seedream can actually fix that. Alright, so we're going to try something a little bit more intense here using these same kind of base images, just like we did in the Nano video. So first things first, I'm going to actually move some of this out of the way, make things a little bit easier to understand here. Alright, so I just reorganized this a little bit, and now we're going to add a third image to this workflow. To do that, we're just going to copy this exact thing. We're keeping the remove background node because we're going to add another product with a white background. Then we're going to take another batch image node, connect our third product there, and then connect the output from the original batch image node to the new one. And then we'll use this now as our input. And for this third product, we're actually going to take these pink, green, and white JBL headphones. Now these headphones don't exist. This is from a new video that I was actually working on for you guys. And you know what? We're also going to switch this to this GCDS sweater. So somewhat complicated, but also should be easy enough to understand. And then you know what? We're actually going to add another image here. So let's take all of this and move it out of the way. Make sure we add a preview image node here. Then we're going to do the exact same process. Copy this third product down, copy this batch image, plug the output from the second to first batch image node into the image 1 slot, then take again our third product, plug this into here, and then re-plug this in. And so for this third product, we're actually going to take this GCDS hat. And for the prompt, we're going to go with something a little bit longer here. And since we have, 3 products being fed, we also want to make sure that we're kind of describing what we want to happen with them. So I said, the woman is standing sideways with her chin tilted up confidently, eyes looking at the camera. She is wearing a GCDS hat with pink and green headphones over it. Swap the red sweater with the GCDS sweater and maintain lip expression and background. Really quick, before we look at the results, I want to make sure you guys have a good look at all of the images that we input. So here is the GCDS sweater. You can see that tag in the back, the little zipper. Then for the headphones, here's the kind of button structure, as well as the color and kind of design. And then finally, our hat has these kind of like rugged, ripped edges. So definitely pretty tough for AI models. Also, this S is kind of unfinished in the photo. It's definitely implied, but sometimes that can trip AI models up, so we'll see how it handles that. And again, we will start with Nano Banana. So overall, honestly, solid. I think it did a pretty great job with the hat and getting the fringes. Again, the quality is still pretty low, but we can fix it with an upscaler. The headphones are great. Technically, there's a logo on the side of these, but can't really blame the model because it didn't know that. Maintain the color accuracy in the headphones as well. So great to see that, but we do see a big flop in the sweater. Overall, this is a really nice sweater. Actually looks really good, but unfortunately it is not the one that we input. I do think that this image is salvageable though. For example, everything from, here up is great, but all we need to switch is the clothing. There are models out there that can do that, like Small Vuitton, which we talked about a couple of weeks ago. So definitely usable. But obviously we want it to be right out of the gate, right? And here's the comparison. So great work though. Definitely not upset about this image other than the sweater. And now for Seedream. One little comment on the AI generated watermark. I didn't even realize that there is an option for it. So it looks like you can just turn it off. So something to keep in mind, which is kind of cool. Obviously they seem to know that you can just remove it yourself in post. So as for quality, you know, this is a tough one. The headphones are great. I will say the buttons are kind of clapped. I think Nano Banana wins there in terms of headphone detail. I think the hat here is arguably better than Nano Banana just because we can kind of see the S and we can clearly read GCDS, right? Same with the hat fringe, which is great. Definitely still looks like our character. I will say she looks like she changed, you know, maybe just a little bit more than Nano Banana maybe. Key thing that Seedream has on Nano here is the sweater properly being integrated into the photo. So overall, for the sake of not making this video an hour long, this is where we're going to cut it off here on YouTube. I think overall what we're seeing is that the two models are definitely comparable. I think maybe in unique use cases, one may be better than the other. But overall, for the big trends in the AI space like virtual try-on, editing images, changing poses, both of them are definitely solid options. In terms of which I would run inside of ComfyUI as of now, it's really tough to say, but I'd probably have to go with ByteDance just because it is 1 cent cheaper. We have a lot more control, and overall results from across the community have kind of shown Seedream to be better than Nano Banana, even if it's only marginally. So thank you guys so much for watching. I hope this helped you guys out. You guys will be able to find this workflow that we built together on our Patreon, available to free members, no subscription needed for this one. And really quick, just to give a quick rundown on how this works. So let's say you just want to do one image. What you'll do is you'll just connect your image to this little connector node and disable the sections in the fast group bypasser. And then if you wanted to do, for example, 2 reference images, you would then take this batch image and plug it in here. And then same goes for 3, for example. One thing to keep in mind is that you want to make sure that you don't do this, for example, because you're going to run into an error since the batch image is trying to pull from a section that is bypassed. And then of course, you'll be able to toggle between Nano Banana and Seedream. So by default, this workflow is going to be set up for a single reference image and to generate with Seedream 4.0. Alright, that's it. Thank you guys so much, and I will see you in the next one.